One of the biggest problems emerging managers have is they don't have the know-how or the expertise on how to spend their time. They believe a lot of conventional wisdom when a lot of it's not true. So my name's Gui Costin. I'm the founder, CEO of Dakota. Me and our investment sales team have created a show called the Emerging Manager Growth Show. What we do on this show is we demystify everything that a lot of conventional wisdom comes from. And the whole goal is for an emerging manager to be able to do more with less. And you have a very experienced team in myself, and I have each one of my team members on. We break down all the tips and tricks and techniques for exactly what an investment salesperson and an emerging manager should be doing to help grow their firm. Join us for another Emerging Manager Growth Show. This is one you're not going to want to miss. What is up, everybody? Gui Costin, founder, CEO of Dakota, and I wanted to talk to you about a new Rainmaker podcast, and it's going to be interviewing heads of sales, heads of distribution, asking them all sorts of questions around how they run their sales organization, really digging into their sales processes, how they've set it up, philosophically, how they've literally built the business. So you can hear, as a salesperson, our audience can hear how the best people in the business are running their sales organization. So if you have an interest in being interviewed, or if you want to recommend someone at your company to be on the show, simply email me at gui@dakotalive.com. And if you just want to register on our website where you can sign up to get alerts when we release the newest episodes, simply go to dakota.com and we'll send you emails every time we release a new interview. What's up, everybody? Gui Costin, founder and CEO of Dakota. Welcome to another edition of Rainmaker Live. I'm joined by my colleague, Andrew O'Shea. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thrilled to have you. So, as you all know, we've been fundraisers for years and years and years. We founded Dakota in 2006. We work with about 5 different investment firms, 8-person sales team, and some client service and support and we're in the market every single day raising money. So we're professional fundraisers. And as a way of background, in 2011, when we started hiring team members just like Andrew, there wasn't any structure in place to train them. And we started going through some salespeople because I was coaching through a concept called mind reading, which is not a good concept in terms of sales training and leadership. So what I was forced to do is codify every single thing that I did as a salesperson. And I turned it into the Dakota way. We documented it. Now we all follow it. And it works like a charm. You really can't find anything in the investment industry that gives you any kind of training around how to be an investment sales professional. And that's what Rainmaker is all about. And it's time-tested principles. Now, everybody has like their own spin on stuff, and you're going to hear us talk a lot about this concept of a jar and rocks and pebbles, and you bring the sand, right? Because everyone's going to bring their little nuance, but we're going to go through foundational things that give a salesperson maximum leverage across the board. Before we dig into it, Osh, anything you want to comment on? Because you've been here 10 plus years, you've lived the Dakota way. It's obviously worked really well for you.
Yeah, I think just embracing the process of fundraising, celebrating the process and the milestones. We know to get to those end allocations, it's difficult and at times out of your control, but this Dakota way is all about embracing the process, and we would recommend our members to follow it as well.
Great. So it is a process. It works. We're going to follow up with documentation after this call. But so there's 4 core principles to the Dakota way, and it starts with focus on what matters most. So if you take that as a concept of focus on what matters most, a lot of salespeople get distracted and they're focused on things that don't make sense. Do you want to just give a little color around that, just in terms of, I'll go through the focus on what matters most, but just how salespeople can get into doing things that don't really matter.
Yeah, and for us, that really means, we like to say internally, we sell apples to apple buyers, and really what that gets down to is meetings and calls with qualified prospective investors, and spending your time on those, as opposed to maybe you have a relationship with someone somewhere, but they don't allocate any capital to outside managers. That's not a great use of time. So we like to say focus on what matters most, and that's meetings and calls with prospective buyers of your strategy.
Right. So the focus on what matters most, kind of the sub headline to this, if you will, and the key takeaway is you have to create a sales plan. So you need to document exactly what you're going to do and where you're going to focus your time and energy. And in that sales plan, that's where you focus on what matters most. You're going to detail that. You're going to sit down with your boss with a sales plan in hand to create alignment so you both agree on what good looks like. This is absolutely critical. We're not here to tell you that you don't know how to create a sales plan. That's really not the point. But you have to have a document in writing that you get alignment. Because if you don't, and then you don't have a plan to report against your progress with your boss, they're going to be thinking that you're doing bad things, if you will, and not focus. So all through everything, always come back to this bedrock principle. Am I focusing on the things that matter most? And you're going to see as we go through each element, it all comes back to that core principle of focus on what matters most. So first component of that, under this first umbrella concept, sales plan, create alignment, then agree when you're going to meet during the week or every other week to go through progress against the plan. Tell me how helpful that's been to have really calm relationships with our clients.
It's extremely helpful, both for the manager to have the portfolio managers to have their expectations aligned and see the progress throughout the entire sales cycle versus you showing up with saying you've raised a bunch of money for them. They need to see what the process looks like. And it also helps keep ourselves on track in terms of focusing on what matters most. Okay, this is what we've sat down and thought through is what matters most. Are we still focused on that, or have we gotten a little bit off track?
Yeah, so it's just you're basically being very transparent with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis on how you're helping that firm grow. And that's a really, really good thing.
Because we know if there's a lack of communication, PMs tend to assume you're not doing anything, correct?
Exactly, yeah. Sales plan creates transparency, pipeline reports, creates alignment with the PMs, so you define what good looks like. And now to move on to core principle number 2, which is know who to call on. Andrew, you just alluded to it a little bit. We sell apples, we grow apples and sell them to apple buyers and trying to convince orange buyers to buy apples. You don't want to be in the convincing business. You really want to find your best fit channel. That's the first component of this. So for us, if it's a mutual fund, who are the largest consumers of mutual funds? There's really 3.
Right. Clearly the larger bank and BD platforms, regional banks,
Yep.
and then RIAs.
So just in that case, if you're selling a mutual fund, you know where to go. Separate accounts, you know where to go, right? So it's defining your TAM, which is really, really important, and making sure you're focused on that match, that perfect match. Just because Harvard has a lot of money, if we have a long-only strategy, right, that's in a mutual fund, probably not the best target, but you could feel cool that when you're calling on Harvard. We think money's green all over. Focus on the channels that are largest consumers of your product. How do you do that? Let's talk about city scheduling, because there is a process to follow that if you're disciplined to this, it works, but you have to be disciplined to it. Let's talk about city scheduling.
Yeah, for us, it's about how do you take a really large universe and then create focus around that. And for us, that's city scheduling. We like, as a team, to have 5 cities on the calendar at any given time. Takes a much wider universe. Centers it around a specific focus group, albeit Boston, New York, Chicago, forces you to go really deep in that city and build out a full day of meetings.
Got it. So we like to circle 9, 11, 1, 3, and 4:30 and book the meetings. Now, in order to do that, you have to send an email. We take emails very seriously, the content of emails. Do you just want to go through? So subject line, meeting request, date and time. You have 1 to 2 sentences max, no paragraphs, just 1 to 2 sentences on why the person should really care. You got to give a lot of thought to that. And then you need to have a clear call to action. Can you meet Feb 14 at 1 o'clock, question mark, right?
Yep. Clear call to action. Brevity is very important.
But pack the punch with the best characteristics of your firm and your strategy. So they're compelled to say, wow, this sounds like a really interesting opportunity.
You're not trying to sell them on the strategy in the email. You just want to get the meeting.
Just the goal is to book the meeting. So do city scheduling using using emails. Okay. So, and if you just repeat that process and every time one city falls off, do the next one, all you're trying to do is get the meeting through email. In Dakota Marketplace, our database, you can go in to Boston and see all the potential targets in Boston or Philly or New York or Chicago, San Francisco, LA, all the cities across the country. So it's very, very efficient. And then you just have to make sure you always are having, if a city drops off, put another city on there.
Right.
Okay, let's get to, now you've booked your day of meetings. Okay, the point number 3, principle number 3 is know what to say, be a master messenger. So this is where I love talking about the rocks and the stones and the sand, because we're going to tell you what the rocks are. You're going to bring your own personality, but there's a few things that have to happen in the meeting. Do you want to kick it off? Number 1, we talk about the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's both de-risking and sort of centering the conversation, which is, there's very key elements of the meeting that they're going to want to extract out, and so you want to cover those in the first 2 minutes to not waste time later in the meeting.
And Andrew, that's a really important point, because you shouldn't force, if you're an experienced marketer, you shouldn't force your due diligence analyst to have to ask you table stakes questions.
Right.
When you kick it off, you should take all those off the table. Within the first 2 minutes, they're extremely clear who you are, what you do, and all the key elements of your firm and your strategy.
Yep.
That's vital, first 2 minutes. Then once you get into it, this is kind of where the sand is, but you got to do, we always talk about it.
Yeah, you want to make it a conversation, not a monologue where they're sitting on the other end of the table. Oftentimes you want to get the allocator talking about what's most important to them, right?
Yeah.
And so the best way to do that is try to make it more of a conversation than a presentation, if you will.
It might sound common sense, because going through the book is really not a great idea. You can highlight a slide here or there. You want to get into a conversation, ask them questions, make sure you've done your research ahead of time on their website. You love to read the quarterly newsletter, which really informs the questions that you're going to ask, and then make it a conversation. And we always say short answer first, and if you're with a PM, definitely short answer first so they can get involved in a conversation. The sand is your own personality to that whole interaction, but the conversation's critical. How you get to it is, kind of your secret sauce, if you will. And then 99.9% of people don't do this, okay? But this is the killer thing. You have to ask the 2 toughest questions. 2 toughest questions are, after you conclude, do a little role play.
Would you see my investment strategy being a fit in your portfolio?
Exactly. So as you close it out, it's like, Andrew, really enjoyed our time together today. Thank you very much. Enjoyed learning more about your firm. But can I just ask you a quick question? Do you see our investment strategy fitting into your client portfolios, right? If you say that and they say no, you know what the follow-up is, right? If they say yes, then you're going to say, do you anticipate doing a search in the next 12 months if it's a long-only strategy? If the answer is yes, then you know exactly what the follow-up is. If no, then just put them on your mailing list and there's no opportunity. Then you're going to go back to the office and someone say, hey, how was the meeting with XYZ RIA or XYZ consultant? And you're going to say, well, this is what I learned, right? And you're going to tell them exactly where you stand. If it's a private fund, the second question is going to be, would you be able to make the 9/30 final close, 9/30 of 24? So asking those 2 tough questions. So the follow-up doesn't occur after the meeting. The follow-up occurs in the meeting, and that's a game changer. I'm going to tell you, it's a game changer. People are very scared to ask that question, right? And there's a lot of fear around asking those 2 questions.
Yep, and you'll come to find once you start doing it that was false fear. That people love talking and telling you exactly where they stand, and it's a great way to get feedback.
So as we close out the training, the 4th pillar is have a killer follow-up system. What that means is you need to leverage a CRM to manage your business. We strongly encourage all salespeople to be Gui Costin Inc. or Andrew O'Shea Inc. And you want to act like you're a one-person sales business. That includes getting a CRM, whether it's Salesforce or something else, and you only have to do a couple of things. It's your number 1 leverage point, numero uno. And Andrew, what do we talk about? It's the key thing you need to get into the CRM on a daily basis.
Your scheduled meetings.
Yes. Got to get the meetings you've scheduled in the database, because then once you do that, okay, and they're properly categorized, you can then run
reports.
Yeah, past activity reports. Now you can see where all your footsteps, all the work that you've done, all your activity, and it's going to trigger sales actions. So we always say time flies, and you'll be amazed how much you accomplish. If you look back the last 90 days of all the meetings that you scheduled and completed, it's going to be an enormous amount, and you're going to have to look at that, because you can click on a button, you're going to be able to see all this information. it'll trigger sales actions. Now, what's connected to that is the next leverage point, which you have to create opportunities for those situations where it's actually moving forward. There's no sense in creating an opportunity if there's not an opportunity, right? Because if you already know that, look, it's not a fit right now, that's fine. That'll show up in that, either on the list of RAs or banks, broker-dealers, consultants. But when there's an opportunity, you create an opportunity report, sort it by stage, and you want to put in 2 custom fields. You want to put in current status, blank field, and next step. So current status and next step, we have all that filled out. Then you run those pipeline reports. That's what you share with you live in those every single day because you're trying to move from the bottom to the top, triggering sales actions, making sure you have those accounts covered, and you know what all those next steps are. Then that's what you click a button, you print it out, or you send it to your boss, and that's what you review during your weekly or biweekly updates. And so the CRM is just so huge, and it's such a big leverage point because you're going to be covering so much ground. You need a mechanism to track all that information effortlessly. So, and then the reporting capability is really strong. So when you think about the Dakota Way and the Rainmaker whole sales process, it's all centered around focusing on what matters most, and then defining who you're going to call on, knowing exactly what you're going to say in the meeting and how you're going to run those meetings, and then lastly, how you're going to track everything and run your one-person sales business. You need to act big, like you're a big company, with the discipline and the structure in place. And Andrew, we've seen this help us raise over $25 billion. It's been an unbelievable system. It works. But as you can see, there's a lot of room for you to bring your own, the sand and your own special sauce. But we're giving you the table stakes, foundational principles of basically how to be a rainmaker. Any parting thoughts, Andrew?
No, we started at the top talking about process, and I think the more you can celebrate the process, it is fun, even though before you get the allocations, watching the pipeline grow, watching the number of meetings grow. So really embrace that as you go through.
Yeah. And you can see how it all just connects, right? It's just one big circle. You just keep repeating that circle, that process, as Andrew said, for the rest of your career. But it does work. It's a lot of fun. And then we basically demystify how to be a great fundraiser or a rainmaker. So thanks for joining the show. Andrew, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Until next time, really enjoyed being with you today. Thanks so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Rainmaker Live. Hopefully you enjoyed the content. As you know, we have a whole program that's dedicated to training both salespeople and sales leaders, okay? How to lead teams and how to follow the principles that we have followed to raise over $25 billion. If you have an interest in bringing me in to meet with your team and go through the Rainmaker curriculum, I would love to do it. Simply email me at Gui@dakota.com.